Thank you, Gary. I welcome the opportunity to speak today on the issue of Brexit, an issue that has dominated political discourse in 2019 and has been overshadowed in 2020 by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, as the Taoiseach has said, the Brexit has not gone away and it is far from done. The impending deadline of July 1st, the date by which the UK must decide if it wants to extend the transition period by either 1 or 2 years, has brought the issue back into sharp focus. The revised withdrawal agreement agreed in October 2019 was in many respects only the end of the beginning, and even that is not fully resolved. Disagreements have emerged regarding the need for an EU office in Belfast, and Fianna Fáil is concerned about the lack of progress by the UK Government in implementing the protocol on Northern Ireland and providing a detailed timetable on same. There can be no backsliding on the protocol and commitments given to avoid a hard border on this island. All the while, a deal on the future relationship needs to be agreed. The future relationship is more than just an agreement on trade in goods, and several other issues must also be considered, including fisheries, level playing field provisions, transport, energy cooperation and law enforcement. The deadline set for all of this to be agreed is the end of December 2020. However, to allow for ratification, the trade agreement should be ready well ahead of the end of the transition period. This was always an ambitious, is somewhat unrealistic deadline, and I think the very most that we can hope for is a bare bones agreement in that time frame. There will be no winners if that is the case. Fianna Fáil believes an extension to the transition period is required, even more so now because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the subsequent delay to the negotiations and the fundamentally altered economic landscape. Following the conclusion of the second round of negotiations, Michel Barnier questioned the ability to achieve, and I quote, an intelligent agreement that limits the shock that the UK's departure from the single market and customs union will entail, unquote, in the timeframe allowed. He also noted that the United Kingdom refused to engage seriously on a number of fundamental issues, and there were 4 areas that progress was disappointingly made, namely 1, level playing field provisions, 2, overall governance on the future relationship, and 3, police and judicial cooperation in criminal matters, and 4, fisheries. In this context, I believe it is imprudent and short-sighted of the UK Government.
If you're sharing, it's 5 minutes in total. I should have said that at the beginning.
Yeah, actually, no. My understanding, I hope this is Deputy Smith's understanding too, is that on question time, the Fianna Fáil slot of 6 minutes will be divided among 3 deputies, including Brandon Smith.
I'm just pointing out it's 5 minutes in total. That's all. Sorry.
No, I appreciate your intervention. Thank you. In this context, I believe it is imprudent and short-sighted of the UK Government to not request an extension to the transition period. But we are where we are, and whilst I believe that in the weeks ahead every effort must be made to reach a consensus between the EU and the UK on this issue, contingency planning must continue apace for all Brexit scenarios. Businesses, the agri-food, tourism and hospitality sectors, amongst others, have received a hammer blow in recent weeks because of the pandemic, and the prospect of a hard or even no-deal Brexit coming down the tracks in the months ahead is a very frightening prospect. In their first quarterly bulletin of 2020, published before the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, the central bank found that even with a basic free trade agreement would still imply significantly higher trade frictions than exist today, and estimates that a transition to an EU-UK free trade agreement after 2020 would lower Irish output by around 3.5% in the long run. The COVID-19 pandemic could very well make these predictions much worse, as over 1 million people are now relying on state support for some or all of their income, and the Department of Finance is expecting that gross domestic product will fall by 10.5% this year, and that unemployment rate could hit 22%. A hard Brexit would be nothing short of Armageddon for the thousands of businesses already on life support. Therefore, Ireland must continue with contingency planning and seek EU support for vulnerable sectors. We must ensure that level playing field provisions remain a central tenet of the negotiations, push for a comprehensive free trade agreement that protects the all-Ireland economy, and ensure that the Protocol on Northern Ireland is implemented in full. There is much at stake and there is no time to lose.